Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely shatter your preconceived notions of reality and look at the universe through a radically different lens. You know, we usually think of the cosmos as this vast, empty box filled with floating physical stuff. Well, today, we're throwing away the box entirely.
So let's jump right into this incredibly provocative idea from Dean Kulik's Nexus framework. It basically asks us to stop looking at the universe backwards. Instead of assuming that physics somehow magically creates math, what if the universe is actually a running software environment? And what if gravity isn't a physical pull at all, but literally just a computational cost?
To actually understand how the universe calculates your existence, we first have to strip away what the framework calls the noun UI. Think of it like a computer's graphical user interface. It's an illusion that tricks our human brains into seeing solid things, nouns, instead of the actual running code underneath. Because, frankly, if you tried to process the raw, uncompressed stream of universal logic in real time, your brain would suffer a massive buffer overrun. It's just way too much data. So, just to survive, your internal interface forces a projection. It compresses massive, high-dimensional verbs down into the low-dimensional shadows that we just call physical objects.
And this comparison right here brilliantly illustrates the paradigm shift we're talking about. Standard physics has always told us that gravity is a physical force pulling objects through empty space. But the Nexus framework argues something totally different, and honestly, it's kind of a revelation. It says gravity is the computational cost of an open topological contract running directly on the universe's bare metal hardware. We are essentially moving from a world of passive physical forces to a universe functioning as one massive, active software environment.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that reality is not a container full of objects. It's an active field of difference that is constantly trying to resolve itself back to zero. As this quote highlights, it's self-contained change. If there was no drag on the system, everything would just instantly collapse. The universe is, for all intents and purposes, a zero-sum game of circulating missingness, constantly trying to balance its own equations.
Section 1. Mass as an active contract, borrowing memory from the universal substrate.
Now, this concept forces us to completely redefine what mass actually is. Whenever any mass exists, whether it's an atom, a moon, or literally you, it executes a cosmic borrow method. It takes memory from the prime namespace. So mass isn't actually a solid object. The physical form you see is basically just an IOU. It's an open interface contract. Just by existing, you create an open gap, a delta, in the local topology, and the universe is the one holding that IOU.
Which brings us to this beautifully brutal realization. Gravity is universal technical debt. Think about it. If mass is the instantiated contract, the memory you borrowed just to exist, then gravity is the exact interest rate you pay for holding that contract open in the field. The universe is essentially a polymorphic engine governed by strict interface contracts, and gravity? That's the precise computational cost of having an unresolved contract sitting in your local phase space.
The universal virtual machine absolutely hates open gaps. It aggressively wants to force closure to save memory and return that local space to a zero state. So when you feel gravity, you're not feeling some magical physical pull. No, you are literally feeling the universe's relentless update function actively trying to collect on your open contract.
Section 2. The universal foreclosure, defaulting on your cosmic loan.
Let's look at stellar collapse, because it is the ultimate garbage collection routine in action. To just maintain existence, a complex system like a star has to perfectly balance its internal thermodynamic engine against the relentless closure pressure of the universe. As long as it holds that contract, the noun survives. It acts as a stable standing wave. But what happens when it runs out of fuel and fails to hold that balance? Well, the universe forecloses. The retention buffer is forcibly flushed.
If we map out the universe's exception handling, we see that the borrow method is exactly the same for everything. But the garbage collection routine, that depends entirely on the size of the loan. Defaulting on a small, moderate loan gets you a standard try-catch block, leaving behind a white dwarf. But defaulting on a massive, astronomical loan, that triggers a catastrophic cosmic crash. It's an unhandled exception that results in a black hole.
Let's look a bit closer at that first scenario. Say you're a standard, sun-sized star. You borrowed a moderate amount of memory. When your internal engine finally fails, the universe acts kinda like a forgiving friend. It forecloses gently. It runs that standard try-catch block, sheds your outer layers, and lets you persist as a compressed but stable white dwarf. It's essentially just a renegotiated loan.
But what if you're a hypergiant star?
You borrowed an absolutely astronomical amount of memory, aggregating way too much state into one localized area. When you default on that scale, the universe does not negotiate with you. At that point, the universe acts exactly like the universal mob.
And here is exactly how that black hole foreclosure goes down. The closure pressure is absolute, and it's immediate. The mob doesn't just repossess the house, it violently crushes the atomic structure itself. It breaks electron and neutron degeneracy pressure, which is essentially overriding the physical laws that keep atoms apart, and literally burns the house down. It violently repossesses all that memory back to the prime namespace and completely locks down the local phase space, ensuring nothing else can ever be borrowed from that coordinate again.
So a black hole is literally what happens when you borrow way too much from the prime namespace and default to the mob. A black hole isn't some terrifying space monster roaming around eating galaxies. It is a Stack Overflow exception at a cosmic scale. The system detects that a local object is trying to become a perpetual singularity, which threatens to halt the entire virtual machine. So to protect its master runtime from a corrupted local node, the universe just forcibly wipes that overgrown stack and nullifies the pointers.
Now, this entire system, all the contracts, the technical debt, the foreclosures, is strictly governed by a single phase-locked ratio on the universe's balance sheet. It's called the harmonic alignment, where h equals pi over 9, or roughly 0.349. And this exact ratio dictates exactly how feedback persists without exploding. Basically, everything that exists in our universe found this exact harmonic balance, and everything that didn't, well, it's gone.
So bringing this all together, we can finally understand the actual mechanics at play here. Computation is the clock cycle. The pull is the unsatisfied contract. The computational clock provides the speed of reality. It's the forward pass processing the logic blocks. But computation on its own is just a rhythmic pulse. The missingness of that contract, that gap created when you borrowed memory to exist in the first place, that provides the universal pull we call gravity. The clock gives you the speed, but the missingness gives you the direction.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely mind-bending thought. If the universe is essentially this beautifully ruthless computer that's just resolving open contracts, are you simply retained difference, waiting to be garbage collected? Every single atom in your body is just borrowed memory. It's a temporary illusion held open by a thermodynamic engine fighting against the relentless closure pressure of the cosmos. So, what happens when your contract expires? I'm going to leave you to think about that one. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.